and listen to that story from the beginning?
Well, anyway, so I would go off into the woods, and everybody else would be doing their thing. They'd be playing baseball, football, or some kind of stupid games and stuff. And I was a loner. So I'd go off into the woods. And just to show you where this place was situated, it was, I guess at one time it was Fort Meade's property. And Fort Meade is an army base. Well, like some of the, you know how somebody say, Jane loves John, or John loves so-and-so on a tree?
Yeah.
Well, way up higher than I could reach, it would say, like, Ed so-and-so, 1873 on the tree. That's how old that stuff was. Ed somebody or other, Jim somebody or other, 1870 something, 1880 something. That's how old that place was. You know, at one time it was down here, people would carve it down here, but the trees had grown up over the years. And that's how, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yes.
So that's where I sort of grew up. And I learned things. I learned what poison oak was, poison sumac, different things. I learned how to make, I can't even think of the tea. Sassafras tea. You ever hear that?
Man, I'm not.
It's good. It's real good. And I lived in the woods quite a bit. When they counted me, I was there, you know. So I was a loner, and I would go fishing, do my own little thing. And yeah, I would go off the base. I would go off the place and stay all day long, and nobody ever missed me. I was that insignificant, you know, as far as it went. Well, when I went to school, I would go to sleep. And the teacher would come back with a yardstick and smack me on my back. And all the boys would laugh at me. You know, I would wake up and the teacher would, and I'd fight the teacher. And I did that 3 times, and they said, the principal came back and he says, no, you're not doing this again. You get out of this school and you're not coming back. So they kicked me out of school. So they said, you go down to Powerhouse and you go to work. And I went down to Powerhouse, and they've got 3, the boilers are as big as this room is. And you get inside the boiler, and you got to take and sweep the walls of the boiler, sweep the soot off the boilers, and the soot goes whoosh. As soon as you touch the wall with a broom, it goes up. There's a gigantic fan, and it pulls the stuff away. So if you, and they showed me something. They put a set of little, like scales like that. Well, but they were digital scales. They weren't this kind of thing. And I think I weighed about 60 or 70 pounds. And when they turned that fan on, I started getting lighter and lighter. I think it was like, I was about 45 or 50 pounds. I lost about 10 pounds when they turned that fan on. You know, if that fan could have sucked me up in there, it would have, you know. Okay, so they open these doors to the thing and they climb out of it, and they got a catwalk. Now they got 3 boilers, and they got 2 on and 1 off. And they turned it off and cooled it down so we could work on it. And up top, I don't know how many, it must have been 100 tubes. You take this rammer staff and you push it in there, and that cleans the pipe, the tube. Then you put another extension on it, and you do that. And you do that all day long. You know, that's the way we cleaned it. And it's almost a whole day's job, and you're black. You know, your clothes are black and you're black from soot. And you had some time off, and I learned how to make wine, learned how to make liquor, learned how to do a lot of bad things, you know, while I was down there. And I'm going to jump back. I was trying to think of this lady's name yesterday, and her name was Millie Simmons, and that's where I learned my ABCs. And you remember I said the word Mac and M were had me so confused. You remember that?
MC used to be part of the...
McPherson.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay. Well, when I went in there, they gave me this job, but what I would have to do, I would have to take, well, you get kids coming in the clinic, and there's a folder on them, and you got to reach in there and get the folder out, and it had all their information on it, whether they had their shots or whatever, and whatever the doctor did. The doctor's name was Dr. Glass. He was a real old fuddy-duddy, but he was a good doctor. And when he sees these people, when he's finished seeing them, the folder would go on a pile. And I would have to take all the folders and put them in their place. But I didn't know what to do, so Mrs. Simmons taught me my ABCs. And I didn't learn them in school. I don't know what I did in school. I didn't do very much. So, I remember in school, in the metal shop, I made a nice metal box with hinges on it and stuff, and painted it red, and it got destroyed when I moved up to the other place. But Mr. Young was his name, and he would cut my hair, would be real long, and he would cut my hair. You know, I was always a loner, not. So anyway, I survived that, and I could wash cars and make $2 washing cars, $5 if I washed and waxed them, and I did a pretty good job. It was their stuff that I used, so I would wash and wax some of their cars. And, these screens on the building were bulletproof screens. You know, you could shoot like I got some bullets here, some 38, like a 38 pistol bullet or something. It would hit it and put a big dent in it, but it wouldn't go through it. You know, so I learned how to pick the lock. There was an old Jess Hanar.
You learned how to pick the lock.
Yeah, but you'd have to go from the outside to do it. You just couldn't, you know, because the locking mechanism was real strong. So, but you could take a spoon and move the thing up, and it would go, you know, like that, and it would open up, and then you could climb out through. It had jealousy windows. The windows would go like that. So you could get in and out or do what you wanted. And come 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I would pick the lock, and the night man didn't know, the night counselor didn't know that the screen was open to lock, because you could jam it and it would stay locked until you opened it up. So you can get out and go do what you want to run around. I was always doing something secretly and stupid all the time. And I'd go down there and see my girlfriend and stuff like that, and come around 4 or 5 in the morning, I'd come back and, you know, do my thing. I never got caught, you know. So, well, that was up. I'm bouncing back and forth from the boys' camp to the other. So, I don't know where to go with this. There's so many things that come in and out of my life.
I'm liking all of your stories.
Hmm?
I'm liking all of your stories.
But that Maple Glen thing with Mr. Joyce, well, they put me in there. They put me in there for 30 days, and they let me out. I told you that when I hit him with the pickaxe.
Yeah.
All right, so I went to camp the next year, and then they said, well, he's too violent. We can't keep him down here, but he's too small to go up to the big place. The heck with it, let's send him up there. And that's when I really started getting in trouble. So there was we would go out and play ball. I didn't really go off the place like I did down in Maple Glen or Children's Center. They transferred me up to Cedar Knoll, which was called Jolly Acres. And that used to be an old Civil War camp for the Yankees and the rebels. The Yankees kept the rebels in a Civil War place. And they used that land to keep prisoners. Years and years before I got there. And I was still in the Drum and Bugle Corps, and they had an old Army bus, 1943 Ford bus, you know. And Mr. Oh, what the hell was his name? Anyway, they used blanket punishment. If one kid did something wrong, they would use the paddle on everybody. And there was a big paddle about that big, had a handle on it. And if one kid did something wrong, everybody had to line up and get 3 whacks. But it had holes in it. And it would suck your meat right into the paddle. Boy, it would hurt. You know, and so he became Mr. Childs. I guess he retired because he was too old. He used to be he started the thing out. But then as years went by, I went to different cottages. I believe I was in Columbus or Bell, one of those two cottages. And I was older. And I learned how to drive at night. I got in an old Chevrolet pickup truck, and they used for maintenance running around, and I could hot wire it. And a lot of times they'd just leave the key in the truck. And I would drive around all over the place. Didn't know where to go, so I just stayed on the grounds, and I learned how to drive there, you know. And I took my driver's test in Baltimore, Maryland, on a Harley Davidson. I got some pictures of a Harley, of a bike, and some of my marijuana plants and stuff like that when I came years and years later, you know. But so anyway, a lot of kids, not a lot of them, but some kids did die there from mistreatment and stuff.
The what?
They died.
Oh.
That's one of the reasons they closed that place down. Yeah.
Wow. That's so different from how things are now.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine. She looked it up on her computer, and that's what happened. They closed it down. Mm. Well, so anyway, my mother would come to see me on a Saturday and Sunday, or Saturday or Sunday, and she came to see me one time, and then I went to see her. And they would take all us kids that were going to like a home visit. They'd put us on a bus and take us to Washington, which was about 23 miles away to Washington, D.C. And then we'd meet our parents or whoever it was come to pick us up, and they would take us home like on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday night they bring you back to the bus and you go back out there. And while we were playing, see how I'm jumping around?
Yep,
Was that okay?
it's fine.
So Mr. Clint Scales, we were playing, Mr. Clint Scales was our counselor. And we were playing baseball or some kind of game. And anyway, over in the corner was a bunch of gloves, baseballs, bats, and stuff like that. And they have these little talks. We did this and we did that. We didn't do this so well. You did that. You especially did this and you did that. And Harris, you get up from that baseball there and come up here and sit up here. This pertains to you especially. And I said, but I can hear you real good right here. And he says, I said, get up here. And he grabbed me by my shirt, chipped my tooth, and picked me up and threw me down on the couch. So I didn't like what happened. So when I got a chance, I went over here and got a baseball bat, and I whacked him. They took me off of him before I could really do any damage. So they took me and put me up in Ash Cottage. Ash Cottage was a detention thing, and it was just like the place down there. The place was maybe about 8 foot by 8 foot or something like that. It had a window, it had a toilet, and it had a sink with push-button knobs on them. You couldn't tear the knobs off and put them in a sock and hurt somebody or something. Well, my window was already busted out in my room. There's a window about like that, and you could reach out and take something and turn your light on and off if you wanted. So this Mr. Stoops, I remember it was a big radio. It was bigger than that one down there. It's a Zenith Transoceanic radio. It's about like that, and it had 2 speakers on it. And he would always come in. He was supposed to be some type of a martial arts expert or something. And he would put that in there. And his name was Mr. Stoops. Yeah, Mr. Stoops. And if you take a shower, you got 60, sometimes 70 seconds to take a shower. And they'll hand you your towel and you go wash it off and you go back to your room. Any longer than that, and they'll turn the hot water on you if they notice you. And it gets pretty hot, and you'll come out of there. So I collected up about 3 or 4 towels, and I put them in my room. I had all this planned out. And back then, when a comb, if you had a comb, it was hard rubber. You could break the teeth off in it. It's not like these little things here. If you do it like that, you just bend them. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. So I broke the teeth off, and I stuck them in the lock between the 2 rooms. Each place had a little cubby hole that would you can open it up and turn the water off in case you wanted to fix the things. So I jammed that up a long time ago. So when I decided to do my thing, I reached out there after they locked my door, and I took the teeth and I stuck them in the lock. This was like on a Friday night. There would be no maintenance people to come in and open the door for them. They couldn't get the things out. So I'd jam them up in there. They had to wait for like Monday morning. They had an emergency thing and they got me out of there eventually. But anyway, so this is where it gets really strange. So I turned the water on the toilet and the sink. It flooded all the rooms down through the hall. And it flooded the hall. It boy down the place down there at the start of his place, he set his mattress on fire. And it just went, the place went crazy. It just went nuts.
Who set their mattress on fire?
Some kid down the hall. We went nuts in that place. So Mr. Stoops didn't know what to do. So he takes a broom handle and takes it at, you know, the push brooms. He takes the broom handle and he reaches in there and he hit me 4 or 5 times with that broom handle. And so I reached out there and I grabbed the broom handle and I pulled him in. And I jerked it real hard and jerked his arm and broke it in 3 different places, out of his sockets and stuff. And I jerked him out there to take him to the hospital. Finally, they got me out of there, but not until I did a lot of damage, you know. So it became from 30 to 60 to 90. Okay, 6 months I stayed in that one room, and I think I was 10 or 11 years old, you know. So the door had that one thing like that, and underneath you could slide a cup. The door was sort of like, it was like that, and then it came down, just big enough thing to slide a cup under, and a tray. And that's how they fed you. So Miss Simmons came down. Miss Johnson was a nurse for up there, and apparently she didn't know what was going on. But Mrs. Simmons missed me. You know, she didn't know what was going on until she heard that I was up there. And she came in, and I used to pick my back, you know, a lot. And it was big scars and stuff all over my back. I never got any sunlight or anything else. They just treated me like a dog. So she came in and saw this and all these sores all over my back, and she said, "That's it, no more. He's coming out of here today." And they took me out of there and put me in the sunshine for this, after 6 months of doing. You take a kid 11 years old, 10 years old, and treat him like that, he becomes an animal, you know. And that's the way I lived. Well, I went back down to Powerhouse, and they gave me crazy things to do. Each cottage has got a boiler, and the boiler was big enough for a kid. They could take the opening to the boiler. The boiler was a monstrous thing, maybe about 4 or 5 feet, and it held hot water in it. And every so often they got to maintain them, and you got to brush them with a slurry of concrete and whatever else would go in there. And they would open this thing up. It was sort of like that, and had bolts all the way around it, and they would open them up and put you in there. It was like 120 degrees, 130 degrees after they shut the thing down all that. You know, it would be like everybody had to take a shower from one side to the other side, you know, in order to maintain this thing. And they put me in that thing. And I'd have to paint it all the way around, in the front and the back, with this concrete stuff. And it would dry, and then they would turn it back on, take you out of there, and close the thing back up. Well, so that was my life. Well, my mother got wind of this, I guess. I don't know for sure. But she said, no, this is not a way to do. So she gave $20, and she had a brother in Bear Creek, Sanford, North Carolina. And she took $20 and gave me $20 and a bus ticket to go to Richmond, Virginia. And then from there, I catch another bus and go from there to Raleigh, North Carolina, or Bear Creek, and meet my uncle. He was the mayor of Sanford. So I hitchhiked and I kept the $20. And when I was hitchhiking, I fell asleep, and some old guys in a 55 Chevrolet station wagon, they were painters, and they went all the way down to Florida, and I didn't know it. And so I had to come back to Bear Creek, North Carolina. And I finally met my uncle, who didn't know me from Adam or anything else. He must have thought I was nuts. And I gave him the note, and apparently some state trooper got a hold of me, and they took me and put me in Raleigh County Jail. Yeah, 11-year-old boy. And back then it was segregation. They didn't put white people and colored people together. So they had these little holes, I guess, where they put a screw in something and then never did cover it up. And you could see through the hole the colored people on the other side. You see that one over in the corner? He murdered his wife. And you see that one over there? He did this or he did. We could see who went and did what. And at nighttime, when I was out on the road, it was freezing out there, you know, and I would break into homes and stuff, vacant homes, and take clothes and put them on me and sleep and wake up. I even went to churches and stuff and slept on the pews and stuff. And that's the way I got back to where I was. And I wouldn't tell them my name. I wouldn't tell them who I was. I think they kept me in there about 12, 14 days or something. Finally, they caught my name, and they put me on an airplane and sent me back to Washington, D.C. And a caseworker named Miss Hertline, she was my caseworker, and she took me to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers and took me around to places and places. Then she sent me into the receiving home. And in the receiving home, they lock you up for like a few days for orientation or something. You can't get out into other public. They got to see how you're going to act and stuff. And they were playing a movie, and I could hear it, but I couldn't see it. And I laid down on my back, and I started pounding on the door with my feet. And this great big colored woman, she come in there with a bottle of ammonia. She threw some on me and some all over the walls and all over the floor. I shut up for the rest of the night. I didn't make any more noise. And a few days later, they took me out of there, and that's when they sent me back down to Cedar Knoll. And they put me on a work detail on a farm. I was tending cows. I was doing blacksmith work.